Welcome to the Newby Health Perspective with Dr. Newby. This is your go-to source for all things health and wellness with your host, Dr. Newby.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Newby Health Perspective, your go-to source for all things with health and wellness. I'm Dr. Keith Newby, and every week I'll be here to guide you through the latest in the medical world, both past and present, ideas to consider, health tips and perspectives, and expert advice. So you know I always have to throw my little 2 cents worth in every week when I do this show. So I have a question I'm going to pose out to the listening audience. And this is indirectly a health-related issue because, again, one of the things that I want to make sure is I keep you safe out on the road. So I have a question for you. Does anybody really know what the purpose of their signal light is? Just so everyone is clear, a signal light is that little thing where you flick your little lever up and down. It's there to tell people either in front of you who may be coming in the opposite direction or behind you which way you're going to turn. So what I'm noticing a lot of times when I'm on the road is people will hit their brakes, then turn the signal light on. And I'm telling them, what difference does it make at that point in time? Once you've hit your brakes, we all know you're going to do something. I mean, the purpose of it is to let people know behind you that, or who may be coming in the opposite direction on the other side of the road, that you're going to turn either in their direction or away so that they could be prepared to slow down and stop behind you. Now, if you hit your brakes and then turn your signal light on, I'm not sure I understand what the significance of that is, but I'm just saying, I want you to really take into consideration the purpose of that little lever and its design. And that is to let people know either in front of you who may be coming the opposite direction or behind you what you're about to do. And how is this a health-related issue? Because if people don't know you're going to slow down and stop, now, granted, people don't need to be following you but so close anyway. But if they are following you too close and you don't let them know you're about to stop or you're going to turn, and you hit your brakes, they may not hit their brakes in time, and they can slam into you, and that creates a health issue. So again, understand the purpose of the signal light, which is to let people know what you're about to do. So that's my mission statement for the day, is to help people learn in the state of Virginia how to drive. Now, I know we joke around about that, saying people in Virginia don't know how to drive, and there's a lot of truth to that. When I came through, I'm a little older now, but when I came through, the only thing I had to do was drive around the block in a residential section, and I got my license. We didn't have to do any parallel parking, interstate driving, nothing. Now, I'm not sure if that's still the case now, but when you think about the little bit of nothing you have to do to get your license, I can understand why people may not always anticipate. I always treat those around me like they are not very smart, meaning when I'm driving, I'm a defensive driver. I always make sure I never assume anybody's going to do anything. Even when people walking in the street, you're supposed to stop when people walking in the street. Now, as a pedestrian, I'm not going to just walk in the street assuming you're going to stop, because depending on if you're texting somebody when you're driving, I may end up in the emergency room or worse. And again, this is the indirect health-related issue as a result of that. So I want to bring that up. I'm going to let it go, but I just wanted to make sure I stake my claim on what we should be doing on the road. So I always love going through things going on in the medical world in terms of medical news. So I consider myself a news reporter here to give you that which you need to know for your best health. So I want to talk to you about a study that identified 11 strong predictors for dementia that may aid early diagnosis. Now, we talked a week or so ago about dementia, and I hope I gave you some good information about that. But I want to go through some more information with you that may be helpful. So millions of Americans are at risk of developing dementia, but early detection and proactive measures could help delay its onset and mitigate its effects, according to a new report that just hit the airwaves. The report indicates that cognitive ability, lifestyle factors, and physical health can predict dementia risk up to 2 decades before symptoms appear. Among these risk factors are, and I'll go through more detail with you, but having diabetes, not exercising, or not having worked in some job capacity for a minute. And the reason of that significance is when you're at work, you interact with people, so you're able to really be around others and have interaction, both in discussions and just being around other people. And when you're not around other people very much, your mind tends to not function as well. So that's really what that was all about. So addressing barriers such as cost and accessibility could expand routine cognitive testing and connect more people to treatments and resources in the critical early stages of dementia. So according to this new report by a nonprofit research organization, RAND, and that's RAND, cognitive ability, functional limitations, and physical health can strongly predict the risk of developing dementia up to 20 years before its onset. Although the current uptake of cognitive testing among older adults remains low, research suggests that participation would increase if the tests were free, easily accessible, and supported by improved treatment options. Early detection of Alzheimer's disease and related dementia is especially crucial for the 58 million Americans over the age of 65, as existing disease-modifying treatments are effective only in the early stages. Yet, only about 16% of individuals in this age group undergo cognitive assessments during routine visits with their primary care doctor. So the RAND researchers conducted 3 tests or studies to identify those at greatest risk for cognitive impairment, explore ways to increase cognitive testing among older adults, and encourage at-risk individuals to maintain brain health care. The first study analyzed cognition and dementia data from the Health and Retirement Study, a nationally representative survey of approximately 20,000 older U.S. adults and their households ongoing since 1992. This analysis identified lifestyle factors such as lack of exercise, obesity, and not engaging in hobbies at age 60 as key predictors of dementia risk from a review of 181 potential risk factors. In addition to lifestyle influences, the study found regional variations in dementia risk, with individuals born in the South facing a significantly higher likelihood of developing dementia even after accounting for other variables. While Black and Hispanic and lower income individuals showed a higher risk, race and ethnicity were not independent risk factors once education and income were considered. Parental health, family size, and marital history were not significant predictors of dementia. The research highlights the importance of adopting a lifestyle that supports brain health throughout life. Understanding what increases the risk of dementia can help doctors and policymakers identify people most at risk and provide the right support to slow down or lessen the impact of cognitive decline. The study found the following factors as strong predictors of developing dementia: having poor physical health, experiencing a stroke, having particular genes that strongly predict a future risk of developing cognitive impairment and dementia, not having a private health insurance plan at age 60, never having worked or having worked only a few years, having diabetes or a body mass index of 35 or more at age 60, never drinking alcohol or drinking excessively. Now, I want to make sure you heard me correctly. The study found that the following factors as strong predictors of developing dementia. So what they're saying is if you don't drink alcohol excessively, then you are at lower risk. So if you drink a bunch of alcohol, you're going to be at higher risk for dementia. Never exercising is a risk. Scoring low on various physical tests such as grip strength, walking speed, and balance. Being less conscientious, and having low engagement in hobbies and activities that involve learning new things. So these are things that could be significant risk factors for developing dementia. So another study explored how people respond when facing cognitive issues. Using data from a long-term U.S. survey, it found that newly diagnosed dementia patients are far more likely to act, noting that 25% of respondents sought financial help from children, compared to just 2% of those without a diagnosis. Even without a formal diagnosis, 29% of people showing signs of dementia sought financial help, suggesting many recognize changes and begin planning early. A diagnosis often prompts practical steps like creating a living will, assigning power of attorney, or moving in with family for support. So a third study found that out-of-pocket costs are the biggest obstacle to accessing cognitive assessments and dementia care. While 80% of Americans said that they would get a free cognitive test, this number dropped by half when a $300 fee was introduced. Most respondents said they seek care if better treatments were available. About 60% would use a therapy that could help them stay independent for 3 extra years. Expanding access to affordable cognitive tests could help more people plan for the future and benefit from current and upcoming treatments. So moving on, I saw another interesting study that demonstrated that dark chocolate may help lower type 2 diabetes risk. So experts are interested in aspects of diet that can decrease someone's chances of developing type 2 diabetes. A study examining the data of 3 cohorts suggests that eating dark chocolate may decrease type 2 diabetes risk, but eating milk chocolate does not offer similar protection. So I want to make sure that's clear. Dark chocolate is a healthier brand. Of course, milk chocolate has to go through all this stuff that they do, and they jack it up in the manufacturing process, so it's nowhere near as healthy. So I want to make sure I make it clear. Don't just go get you a Snickers bar or Three Musketeers or Hershey's bars and think that's going to decrease your risk. I'm not talking about that type of chocolate. I'm talking about dark chocolate. So in 2022, 830 million people worldwide had diabetes. The vast majority of people with diabetes have type 2, so researchers are particularly interested in its prevention. A study published in the British Medical Journal analyzed the relationship between eating chocolate and the risk for type 2 diabetes. This research was able to differentiate between dark and milk chocolate consumption. Researchers found that participants who ate 5 or more servings of dark chocolate a week had a 21% decreased risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Now, further research can confirm what this study found and seek to understand the reasons for these observations. Now, the next study I found that I thought you might find interesting is that eating more plant protein may lower the risk of heart disease by as much as 27%. So a recent study examined the potential effects that consuming different forms of protein may have on heart health. The researchers were interested in the ratio of plant versus animal-based protein people consumed and their long-term health outcomes. The researchers learned that consuming a higher ratio of plant to animal protein could lead to a reduction in both coronary heart disease and cardiovascular disease in general. With deaths attributed to heart disease holding the top spot in the U.S., researchers wonder how to cut that number. While medications and technological interventions do help, diet remains a focus point for those looking to prevent heart disease or improve their health after being diagnosed with it. Research with the Harvard T.H. Chang School of Public Health recently released the results of a 30-year study that analyzed the effect consuming more plant-based protein than animal-based protein on heart health. While the research did not yield a specific ratio of plant to animal protein to incorporate into dietary guidelines, the researchers did learn that people who consume more plant-based protein generally have lower ratios of both coronary heart disease and cardiovascular disease in general. So in terms of some nutrition tips for consuming more plant protein, there's plenty of data out there that suggests that plant-based protein diets or Mediterranean diets are the best diets to prevent cardiovascular disease and future events. And when we say events, what we mean is heart attack and stroke. The Mediterranean diet focuses on eating plant-based foods, healthy fats, and whole grains. A high ratio for prevention of coronary heart disease might further improve blood lipids, blood pressure, and inflammatory markers. Because these plant-based proteins are accompanied by high amounts of fiber, antioxidant vitamins, minerals, and healthy fats. People interested in improving their plant to animal protein ratio should cut back on red meat and focus on eating more healthy nuts. Eating more healthy nuts daily as a source of protein. Nuts are a good source of protein, fat, and fiber, have a low glycemic index, reduce cardiovascular disease and some cancers, and improve cognitive functioning too. So I found another interesting research study that demonstrated that ultra-processed foods may trigger or worsen psoriasis flare-ups. Now, psoriasis are skin disorders, and really, to be honest with you, I'm really not surprised to read some of this based on what I see now versus 20 years ago when we didn't have as many processed foods then. So people eating diets high in ultra-processed foods are more likely to have active cases of psoriasis, and this is coming from a new research study that was put out. This research appears to be the first to link these foods with psoriasis flare-ups, but the causes have yet to be fully understood. So this research letter, which depended somewhat on self-reported dietary and psoriasis symptoms data, found that consumption of these ultra-processed foods corresponded closely to having active cases of psoriasis. The researchers drew their conclusions from a cross-sectional study of data from the Nutrinet Santé cohort study conducted between 2021 and 2022 in France. There were 18,528 participants in the study, ages 62 to 70. Of these, 74% were women and 26% were men. After the letter's authors adjusted their findings to account for confounders such as body mass index, age, alcohol consumption, and comorbidities, the association between these ultra-processed foods and active psoriasis remained strong in the self-reports. The research letter states that no association of ultra-processed foods was observed for participants whose diagnoses were validated by a dermatologist. The data suggests, say the authors, that ultra-processed foods contributes a psoriasis-aggravating pro-inflammatory effect separate from the previously documented similar effect of having a high body mass index. So really, what are ultra-processed foods? Well, these constitute a significant portion of the modern American diet. Such foods are designed for inexpensive mass production, sacrificing healthfulness for low cost, flavor, and convenience. Ultra-processed foods are high in oils, fats, sugars, and proteins derived from natural foods and are rich in modified starch and hydrogenated fats, along with food coloring and flavor enhancers. They typically contain 5 or many more ingredients. Examples of ultra-processed foods include sausages and similar types of processed meats, sweetened drinks, sweetened yogurts, sodas, hamburgers, and breakfast bars. So my next study looked at whether or not drinking coffee can lower diabetes risk, heart disease risk. Now, in a nutshell, according to a study published in September in the Endocrine Society's Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, consuming coffee and caffeine in moderation on a regular basis could help prevent conditions like type 2 diabetes, coronary heart disease, and stroke. The amount the researchers found that had the most protective effects were about 200 to 300 milligrams daily, or roughly 2 to 3 cups of coffee per day. So key takeaways. The researchers compared people who did not consume any caffeine or who drank less than 100 milligrams per day with people who drank about 200 to 300 milligrams of caffeine a day, or the equivalent again of 3 coffee drinks. The latter group, who consumed a moderate amount of caffeine, had a 48% reduced risk of developing cardiometabolic diseases. The study used data from the UK Biobank with a large sample size of over 350,000 people ages 37 to 73. So a particular registered dietitian who is not involved in the research explained that the mechanism through which caffeine may reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes is by enhancing insulin sensitivity as well as boosting fat metabolism to support overall cardiometabolic health. Now, the next question you probably want to know is, can too much caffeine increase heart disease risk? So in a nutshell, a study not yet published in a peer-reviewed journal but recently presented at the ACC Asia 2024 conference found that people who chronically consume high amounts of caffeine at least 5 days per week may have an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. This was true even if the study participants were otherwise in good health. So the key takeaways for this study was researchers defined chronic caffeine consumption as drinking any caffeinated beverage, including coffee, tea, soda, and energy drinks 5 days a week or over a year. This equated to about 400 milligrams of caffeine daily, or roughly 4 cups of coffee, 2 energy drinks, or 10 cans of soda. The researchers discovered that people who consumed at least 400 milligrams had increased heart rates and blood pressure over time, and this was even more pronounced for people who consumed 600 milligrams of caffeine a day. Commenting on these findings, a lead author of this study and researcher said due to its effects on the autonomic nervous system, regular caffeine consumption could put otherwise healthy individuals at risk of hypertension and other cardiovascular events. Increasing awareness of these risks is vital to improve heart health for all. So I guess the moral of the story is like the 3 little bears. You either have that the porridge is too hot, the porridge is too cold, but what you want is the porridge just right. So just remember, 200 to 300 milligrams of caffeine is the most you should have in a day. So just be careful with that and make sure you stay within these guidelines. Don't get crazy and don't tell everybody Dr. Newby said I could drink as much coffee as I want. I didn't say that. What I said was, based on the study, is that a modest amount of caffeine, and I gave you the number, 200 to 300 milligrams, and that's 2 to 3 cups of coffee per day maximum, can offer cardioprotective effects. Anything more than that can create a problem. Anything less than that also can potentially create a problem. Now, if you're not a coffee drinker, then don't drink it. This is just something to help guide you. And it is my continued hope to offer you all the good information I can. But again, one thing with a lot of these studies, you have to take a lot with a grain of salt. And one of the things I learned early on is when I look at data as a professional, I have to analyze that data, look at it, and use my medical understanding to make sure that it makes sense. And I tell people a lot who bring things to me, and they'll say, these are non-medical people who will say, I've done my research and it suggests X, Y, or Z. And my response back to them is, well, listen, I hear you, but the bottom line is you're not a medical professional. You don't know whether or not this study is crap or not. And it very well could be. I tell these companies that sell like those over-the-counter, non-FDA regulated treatments, they'll say their stuff is great and they did X number of studies to prove it. Well, what company is going to put out that their product is bad? Nobody's going to do that. Why? Because they're trying to sell it to people like you. So they're hoping that a sucker is born every day, and I don't want you being a sucker. So what I always ask people to do is you can do your research. I'm not saying don't do it, but just remember you don't have the medical understanding or background to make sense of some of this stuff. And what you may read may not always be factual. That's where people like me come into play, where I or one of my colleagues, say your primary care doctor or whomever, may be able to help guide you and help you to understand that what you think you may be reading may or may not be factual. That way you don't go down the wrong path. I give you a prime example. When I was training at Duke University, which is a very reputable cardiology program, one of the things that they taught us, and this was based on a study that was done back then that said that injecting people with high doses of magnesium in the face of an acute myocardial infarction or heart attack would help save lives. So based on that study, we started to inject people with high doses of magnesium. Now, magnesium itself is not dangerous to administer, but the question is, did it help? And what we found is that we weren't really seeing a difference in outcomes. People were still doing relatively well, but that was when stents were just coming into play when I was going through training. And I know that's telling my age, but I'm just keeping it real. That was at a time when stents were just coming into play. So we were still doing balloon angioplasty for a lot of people. But we did note it based on that result that we weren't seeing the trend that proved that study. And then a few months later, another study came out saying that the IV magnesium didn't do anything for people with acute heart attacks. And then another study came out confirming that study that also said that high doses of magnesium were ineffective. So I say all this to say that you have to take these studies with a grain of salt. And that's why coming to us, having that discussion, will help you make the best choice to ensure your safety and that you're making the best choices for you. So the last topic I want to talk about today, and don't get upset or turn me off when I bring this word up. I know this is a nasty word for a lot of people, but we're going to talk today about exercise and how to start. So exercise involves physical activity and increasing the heart rate beyond resting levels. It's important for preserving both physical and mental health. And I know for a lot of you guys, that's a dirty word, but I'm telling you, it does have its benefits. So let's talk about types of exercise. So people divide exercise into the following broad categories. One is aerobic, one is anaerobic, one is agility training, and one is stretching and flexibility. So what is aerobic exercise? Well, that's a form of exercise that aims to improve the body's use of oxygen. Most aerobic exercise takes place at moderate intensity over longer periods of time. An aerobic exercise session involves warming up, exercising for at least 20 minutes, and then cooling down. So aerobic exercise mostly uses large muscle groups. So that would involve running, cycling, walking, swimming. Now, anaerobic exercise does not use oxygen for energy. People use this type of exercise to build power, strength, and muscle mass. So these exercises are high-intensity activities that could last no longer than about 2 minutes before taking a short rest. Anaerobic exercises include weightlifting, sprinting, intensive and fast skipping with a rope, interval training, isometrics, and any rapid burst of intensive activity. So agility training which is the third category, aims to improve a person's ability to maintain control while speeding up, slowing down, and changing direction. In tennis, for example, agility training helps players maintain control over their court positioning by helping them recover well after each shot. People who participate in sports that rely heavily on positioning, coordination, speed, and balance need to regularly engage in agility training. The following sports are examples of ones that require agility: tennis, football, hockey, badminton, volleyball, basketball, soccer, martial arts, boxing, wrestling. Now, the last one is stretching and flexibility. Some exercises combine stretching, muscle conditioning, and balance training. A popular and effective example is yoga, which can improve balance, flexibility, posture, and circulation. Pilates is another stretching option that promotes flexibility and core strength. Tai Chi is also an effective exercise that promotes calm stretching rather than intensity. So we talked about these categories. So what are the benefits of exercise? Well, exercise can improve a person's mood and decrease feelings of depression, anxiety, and stress. According to a 2019 review, just 10 to 30 minutes of exercise is enough to boost a person's mood. Many studies have also found exercise to be therapeutic for mental health issues, including depression, anxiety, and drug addiction. So exercise also helps with weight management. This can burn calories and can help a person achieve and maintain a healthy weight for them. Although they burn fewer calories, anaerobic exercises such as weightlifting can build muscle and improve strength. Increasing muscle mass, it causes the body to burn more fat, even when resting. Muscle is the most efficient tissue for burning fat. Combining aerobic exercise and resistance training may also maximize fat loss and muscle mass maintenance. This could help manage weight and maintain lean muscle. It also reduces the risk of chronic conditions. Much research associates lifelong regular exercise with a longer health span and delayed onset of at least 40 chronic conditions. Exercise has been shown to reduce the risk of diabetes, stroke, and cardiovascular disease. It can also improve life expectancy, as I mentioned previously, and symptoms for people with coronary artery disease. High-intensity exercise also stimulates bone growth and reduces the risk of osteoporosis. A 2023 review showed that strengthening, jumping, and weight-bearing aerobic exercise reduces osteoporosis in postmenopausal women. So it also helps brain health and memory. So regular exercise promotes that brain health and can help preserve a person's cognitive function or their ability to think. So in many research studies demonstrated previously, regular exercise has neuroprotective effects against neurodegenerative conditions such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. It also improves relaxation and sleep quality. Regular exercise can help with relaxation, including helping people sleep better and alleviating symptoms of sleep disorders. So what are the risks of not exercising? Well, according to the World Health Organization, physical inactivity is a leading risk factor for many chronic conditions and death worldwide. A sedentary lifestyle can increase the risk of the following health conditions: heart disease, hypertension, stroke, diabetes, depression, dementia, and several cancers. So you have to find time to exercise. A busy schedule may make it difficult to find time. However, and I've said this before myself, there are ways to incorporate activity in your daily life. Stop making excuses why you can't walk your tail to work sometimes, or when you get to work, you could walk around the building. I have more people give me excuses why they can't do certain things, and I don't want to hear it. I walk to the hospital from my office every day. So I go from 21st Street in Norfolk to Centera Norfolk General Hospital every day. Rain or shine, cold, hot, doesn't matter. I walk there and walk back. It's a mile there and a mile back. So if I can do it at my age, you can do it. And there's nothing worse than somebody's trying to get me to write them a handicap sticker because they fat, don't want to walk, or they want a scooter. I'm like, why would I do that when you already are overweight and got so many health issues? You need to get out and walk more. That's the whole point. So get out there, stop messing around, and get busy. So anyway, that's my show for the week. This is Dr. Keith Newby with the Newby Health Perspective. If you, I don't even want you to fuss at me about what I talked about being overweight, so I ain't going to put the website up here this week. I'm going to say this. Get out there, get busy, stop messing around, and stay healthy. I'll see you next week.